Imagine waking up in a city where every stone tells a story of empires, art, and the slow passage of time. The sun is just beginning to crest over the spires of the Hofburg Palace, casting a soft, honeyed glow across the cobblestones. There is a specific stillness here, a moment before the city fully awakens, where the air feels thick with history. We are about to embark on a journey through the heart of Vienna, a walk through grand palaces, historic coffee houses, and hidden gardens. It is a story told through the scent of roasted coffee and the sound of horse-drawn carriages. But are you ready to slow down and truly see it? The Hofburg is not merely a palace. It is a labyrinth of power that evolved over 7 centuries. As we stand in the Michelehrplatz, the curved facade of the Michelehr tract looms above us, decorated with monumental statues representing the labours of Hercules. This was the winter heartbeat of the Hapsburg Empire, a dynasty that shaped the map of Europe for generations. Every wing of this massive complex represents a different era, from the medieval Swiss wing to the grand Renaissance additions. You can almost feel the presence of the emperors who once walked these halls, men like Franz Joseph, who ruled for 68 years, and his wife, the enigmatic Empress Elizabeth. The stone itself seems to absorb the silence of the morning. Look closely at the intricate carvings, the shields, the eagles, and the crown. These are not just decorations, they are symbols of a claim to divine right. In the early light, the granite paving beneath our feet feels cool and solid, worn smooth by the passage of millions of footsteps over hundreds of years. The sheer scale of the Hofburg is meant to make the individual feel small, a testament to the absolute authority of the Habsburgs. However, there is a certain intimacy found in the smaller courtyards. The inner Berghof, with its red and white window frames, feels like a private sanctuary within the fortress. It was here that the Imperial family lived their daily lives, shielded from the public eye. But how did this massive stone anchor influence the daily rhythm of the city around it? To understand that, we must look beyond the walls to the great boulevard that surrounds them. The transition from the medieval core to the grand Ringstrasse represents a shift from a fortress mentality to a public display of imperial grandeur. As the sun rises higher, the details of the gold leaf on the railings begin to shimmer, beckoning us to follow the path of the emperors out into the wider city. Walking out into the Heldenplatz, the square of heroes, the space suddenly opens up, revealing a horizon of dome and spire. This massive plaza was intended to be part of a much larger imperial forum that was never fully completed, leaving it with a sense of haunting vastness. In the centre, 2 colossal bronze statues stand as silent sentinels: Archduke Charles, who defeated Napoleon at Aspern, and Prince Eugene of Savoy, the brilliant military strategist who defended Vienna from the Ottoman Empire. The statues are masterclasses in bronze, the horses captured in mid-leap, their muscles tensed as if they might gallop off their pedestals at any moment. The sound of our footsteps echoes differently here. The open space swallows the noise, leaving only the distant rumble of the city and the occasional cry of a bird. It is a place of profound memory. While it reflects the glory of the Habsburgs, it also bears the weight of the 20th century's darkest hours. History is rarely a straight line. It is a series of layers, one built upon the other. Looking toward the Neue Burg, the new castle, we see the curved neoclassical wing that was finished just as the empire was beginning to crumble. Its white stone is pristine, Yet it serves as a reminder of an ambition that outpaced its time. The grass in the square is meticulously kept, a vibrant green that contrasts with the grey and white of the surrounding monuments. Even the air feels different here, carried by a wind that sweeps across the plains of the Danube and channels through the gaps in the buildings. As we stand here, we can begin to see the outline of the Ringstrasse in the distance. This was the great project of the 19th century, a circular boulevard that replaced the city's old defensive walls with monuments to culture and democracy. It was a physical manifestation of the empire's attempt to modernize. But what was lost when the walls came down? The transition from a walled city to an open metropolis changed the very soul of Vienna. It transformed it from a hidden, aristocratic enclave into a stage for public life. The Heldenplatz was the gateway to this new world, a place where the old empire met the rising tide of the modern age. Just a stone's throw from the grand squares lies a place where time truly seems to have stopped, the Spanish riding school. Even if you don't enter for a performance, the atmosphere around the stables is unmistakable. There is a scent that lingers in the air, a mixture of fresh hay, polished leather, and the earthy aroma of horses. It is a surprisingly rural smell to encounter in the heart of a European capital. This is the home of the Lipizzaner stallions, the famous white dancers of Vienna. These horses are a living legacy of the Renaissance, trained in the classical art of haute école horsemanship. Their coats are a brilliant, shimmering white, though they are born dark and only turn pale as they mature. This transformation was often seen as a metaphor for the refinement of the soul through discipline and grace. The Winter Riding School itself is an architectural marvel, a massive sun-drenched hall with white pillars and crystal chandeliers. It was designed by Joseph Emanuel Fischer von Erlach, and it remains one of the most beautiful indoor riding arenas in the world. Imagine the sound of hooves on the sand, a muffled rhythmic thud that keeps time with the classical music that usually accompanies their training. It is a dance of absolute precision, a communication between horse and rider that transcends words. But why does this tradition persist in the age of the automobile? Perhaps it is because the Lipizzaner represent an ideal of elegance that we are loath to let go. They are the living embodiment of the Hapsburg courtly life, graceful, disciplined, and slightly detached from the chaos of the outside world. As we walk past the stable doors, we might catch a glimpse of a groom in a traditional uniform, or hear the gentle snort of a stallion waiting for his morning exercise. The connection between the Viennese and these animals is deep. The horses are part of the city's identity as much as the palaces or the opera. They remind us that even in a city built of stone and gold, the most enduring legacies are often those that are alive. The sight of a Lipizzaner being led across the street to the arena is a common yet magical occurrence, a brief moment where the 18th century interrupts the 21st. It is a reminder that in Vienna history isn't just in the museums, it's walking right beside you. In December 1857, Emperor Franz Joseph issued a decree that would change Vienna forever. He ordered the dismantling of the city's ancient fortifications, the walls and moats that had protected the city for centuries. In their place, he envisioned a grand boulevard, the Ringstrasse. This was more than just a road. It was a statement of imperial power and a celebration of the era's wealth and culture. As we walk along this 4-kilometre loop, the sheer variety of architectural styles is staggering. This is the heart of historicism, a movement where architects look to the past to define the present. The Parliament building resembles a Greek temple. The City Hall is a neo-Gothic masterpiece, and the university reflects the clean lines of the Italian Renaissance. Each building was chosen to represent the function it served: democracy, governance, and education. The Ringstrasse is lined with thousands of trees, mostly maples and lindens that create a green corridor through the stone. In the spring, the scent of blossoms fills the air, while in autumn, the leaves turn a brilliant gold, mirroring the leafing on the buildings. The sound here is constant. The chime of the trams, the hum of traffic, and the chatter of people in the park. It is the artery of the city, connecting the different districts in a seamless circle. But was the Ringstrasse built for the people or for the emperor's ego? The answer is likely both. While it provided the city with much-needed space and public institutions, it was also designed to allow the military to move quickly to any part of the city to suppress potential uprisings. The wide boulevards were as much about crowd control as they were about aesthetics. Standing on the sidewalk, you can see the Ringstrasse Palais, the private mansions of the wealthy elite who funded the construction. These buildings are covered in ornate details, caryatids holding up balconies, elaborate wrought iron gates and heavy oak doors. They tell a story of a rising middle class that wanted to live like the old aristocracy. The Ringstrasse became a stage where everyone could see and be seen. It was the quintessential public space of the 19th century, a place where the grandeur of the state and the ambitions of the individual met on a grand scale. As we continue our walk, we see how this boulevard serves as the framework for Vienna's most iconic landmarks. Approaching the Austrian Parliament building, one could easily forget they are in Central Europe and imagine they have been transported to ancient Athens. This was the intention of its architect, Theophil Hansen. He believed that the architecture for a house of law should reflect the birthplace of democracy. The result is a stunning neoclassical temple, complete with Corinthian columns and a pediment filled with marble figures. In front of the building stands the monumental Pallas Athena fountain. The Greek goddess of wisdom towers over the scene, holding a spear and a golden statue of Nike. Below her are allegorical figures representing the four most important rivers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire: the Danube, the Inn, the Elbe, and the Vltava. The sound of the water splashing into the basin provides a constant soothing backdrop to the political bustle of the area. The stone used here is a pale, creamy marble that seems to glow when the sun hits it directly. If you look at the roofline, you'll see bronze charioteers, quadrigas, driven by the goddesses of victory. These figures appear to be racing across the sky, adding a sense of dynamic movement to the otherwise static and heavy building. It is a masterclass in symbolism. Every statue and every column is meant to remind the legislators inside of their duty to wisdom and the people. But how did a Greek temple fit into the landscape of a Catholic Germanic empire? It was a bold choice, signalling that the Hapsburgs were willing to embrace the ideals of the Enlightenment, at least in appearance. The interior is just as grand, with a hall of pillars that mimics the layout of a Greek marketplace. As we stand at the foot of the grand ramp, the scale of the building is intimidating. It was designed to impress, to command respect for the law. The texture of the stone is smooth and cold, a contrast to the warm wood and velvet found in the nearby coffee houses. The Parliament is a reminder that Vienna was not just a city of balls and waltzes. It was a centre of complex, often volatile political thought. The building has survived wars and revolutions, its white columns standing firm as the world around it changed. It remains a silent witness to the birth of modern Austria. Directly across from the Burg Theatre stands the Rathaus, the Vienna City Hall, a building that looks like it was plucked from the pages of a medieval fairy tale. Designed by Friedrich von Schmidt, who had worked on the Cologne Cathedral, it is a magnificent example of neo-Gothic architecture. Its central tower rises nearly 100 meters into the air, topped by the Rathausmann, a golden knight who has become one of the symbols of the city. The facade is a forest of pointed arches, delicate stone tracery, and fierce-looking gargoyles. Unlike the clean, rational lines of the Parliament, the Rathaus is full of shadow and vertical energy. It feels alive, as if the stones themselves are reaching for the clouds. This style was chosen to evoke the power of the medieval merchant guilds and the independence of the city's citizens. It was a statement of civic pride that stood in contrast to the imperial authority of the Hofburg. The square in front of the Rathausplatz, is almost never empty. It is the city's primary stage for public celebration. In the winter, it hosts a massive ice skating rink and a world-famous Christmas market. In the summer, it becomes an outdoor cinema and food festival. The air here often smells of roasted almonds, mulled wine, or international street food, depending on the season. The sound of laughter and music is the constant heartbeat of this space. But what lies behind those heavy stone walls? Inside, the Rathaus is a city within a city, with over 1,500 rooms and 7 courtyards. The Arkadernhof is one of the largest inner courtyards in Europe, providing a quiet, sheltered space away from the noise of the Ringstrasse. The texture of the building is rougher than the Parliament. The sandstone has a gritty, tactile quality that catches the soot and the light in equal measure. Standing in the centre of the square, looking up at the spires, you realise that the Rathaus is where Vienna's history meets its modern, vibrant life. It is the place where the city administration works, but also where the people play. It represents the transition from the subject to the citizen. As the sun catches the gold on the Rathausmann's spear, we are reminded that while the empire may have fallen, the city and its people remain the true masters of this grand landscape. As we move further along the Ringstrasse, 2 slender, lace-like spires rise above the trees. This is the Votive Kirche, the votive church. Its origin is deeply personal. In 1853, a young emperor, Franz Joseph, survived an assassination attempt. His brother, Ferdinand Maximilian, called upon the citizens of the empire to donate funds for a new church as a votive offering, a symbol of gratitude for the emperor's life. The architect, Heinrich von Ferstel, was only 26 when he won the competition to design it. He chose the neo-Gothic style, aiming to create a cathedral of the 19th century. The result is a building of incredible lightness and delicacy. The towers are not solid. They are made of open stone tracery that allows the sky to peek through, making them look like frozen lace against the blue of the Viennese morning. Inside, the atmosphere shifts. The air is cooler, smelling faintly of old incense and wax. The light is filtered through magnificent stained glass windows, casting vibrant pools of blue, red, and gold across the stone floor. It is a place of profound quiet, a sanctuary from the traffic just a few meters away. The silence is so deep you can hear the faint flicker of the prayer candles. But what does this church tell us about the Habsburgs' relationship with their people? The fact that it was funded by public donations across the entire empire, from Milan to Prague, speaks to the symbolic power the emperor held. It was a unifying monument in a diverse and often fractured realm. The church is dedicated to the Saviour, but it is also a monument to the endurance of the monarchy. Outside, the park surrounding the church, the Sigmund Freud Park, is a favourite spot for students from the nearby university to lounge in the grass. The sight of young people reading and chatting in the shadow of this imperial monument is quintessentially Viennese. The contrast between the rigid historical architecture and the relaxed modern life is everywhere in this city. As we look up at the spires, we see the intricate carvings of angels and saints, each one a testament to a level of craftsmanship that is rare today. The votive church is not just a place of worship, it is a pillar of history standing at the crossroads of gratitude and power. To understand the soul of Vienna, one must understand the coffee house. But where did this obsession begin? The story takes us back to 1683, during the Second Ottoman Siege of Vienna. The city was on the brink of starvation and surrender when a coalition of European forces finally broke the siege. In their hurried retreat, the Ottoman army left behind hundreds of sacks filled with mysterious dark green beans. Most of the soldiers thought it was camel fodder and tried to burn it. However, a man named Jerzy Franciszek Kolchicki, a polyglot and spy who had lived in the Ottoman Empire, recognized the beans for what they were. He claimed the sacks as his reward and opened the city's first coffee house, supposedly named the Blue Bottle. He is often credited with adding milk and honey to the bitter brew to suit the Viennese palate, thus inventing the first melange. While the legend of Kolchicki may be partly myth, the impact of coffee on the city was very real. By the 18th century, coffee houses were popping up all over Vienna. They were unlike any other public space. For the price of a single cup of coffee, a patron could sit for hours, read the newspapers and discuss politics, art or gossip. They became public living rooms, a third space between work and home. The early coffee houses were simple, but they quickly evolved into the grand, opulent spaces we see today. They featured marble-topped tables, bentwood chairs and massive mirrors that reflected the candlelight. The air was thick with the aroma of freshly ground beans and tobacco smoke, a sensory signature that would define the city for centuries. The sound of the coffee house was a low hum of conversation, punctuated by the clinking of silver spoons against porcelain. But why did the coffee house take such a firm hold in Vienna compared to other cities? Perhaps it was the nature of the Viennese themselves, a people who value leisure and intellectual discourse over the frantic pace of the industrial world. In the coffee house, time slowed down. It was a democratic space where a poet might sit next to a banker and a student next to a general. This cross-pollination of ideas would eventually lead to the great intellectual breakthroughs of the 20th century. As we prepare to step into one of these historic establishments, we are stepping into a tradition born of war, but perfected in the name of peace and pleasure. Stepping through the doors of Café Central is like stepping back into 1900. Located in the stunning Palais Ferstel, the café features soaring vaulted ceilings and elegant marble columns. At the entrance, you are greeted by a life-size statue of the poet Peter Altenburg, who famously had his mail delivered here because he spent more time in the café than at his own apartment. He once called the coffee house the organization of the disorganized. This was the epicenter of Vienna 1900, a period of unparalleled intellectual ferment. On any given afternoon, you might find Leon Trotsky playing chess in a corner, while Sigmund Freud discussed the subconscious at a nearby table. Architects like Adolf Loos and writers like Stefan Zweig were regulars. The cafe was a laboratory for ideas that would reshape the modern world, from psychoanalysis to 12-tone music to socialist theory. The atmosphere is one of refined concentration. The waiters, known as Herr Ober, move with a practiced, slightly aloof grace. They wear black vests and white aprons, carrying silver trays laden with coffee and water. In a traditional Viennese coffee house, the coffee is always served with a small glass of cold water, topped with a silver spoon placed face down. This is a sign of respect for the purity of the water and the quality of the brew. The sound of Café Central is distinct. There is the gentle clatter of cups, the rustle of international newspapers held in wooden frames, and the soft strains of a piano in the late afternoon. The lighting is warm and amber, casting long shadows across the checkered floor. It is a place designed for lingering. No one will ever ask you to leave or pressure you to order more. You are paying for the space, the atmosphere, and the conversation. But what made this specific cafe so special? It was the architecture of the Palais Ferstel itself, which provided a sense of grandeur that inspired big thinking. The neo-Renaissance vaults created acoustics that allowed for private conversations even in a crowded room. As you sit here, sipping your coffee, you can almost hear the echoes of the heated debates that took place over a century ago. Café Central reminds us that sometimes the most revolutionary ideas don't start in a boardroom or a university. They start at a small marble table, over a cup of coffee and a pastry. In Vienna, you don't just order a coffee. That would be like going to a library and asking for a book. The coffee menu is a map of textures, temperatures, and tastes. The most iconic drink is the Wiener Melange, 1 part espresso, 1 part steamed milk, topped with a delicate layer of milk foam. It is smoother and milder than a cappuccino, designed for long, thoughtful sipping. Then there is the Einspanner, a strong black coffee served in a tall glass, topped with a thick dollop of cold whipped cream. The name comes from the one-horse carriage. Drivers would hold the glass in one hand while the thick cream acted as an insulator, keeping the coffee hot while they waited for passengers. To drink it correctly, you should sip the hot coffee through the cold cream, creating a delightful contrast of temperatures on the palate. Every order is a ritual. The waiter arrives with your tray, and the first thing you notice is the glass of water. This is a crucial part of the experience. It is meant to cleanse the palate before and after the coffee, ensuring you taste every nuance of the roast. If you finish the water, the waiter will silently replace it. It is a subtle promise that you are welcome to stay as long as you like. But what does the coffee actually taste like? Viennese roasts tend to be medium-bodied, with chocolatey and nutty undertones rather than the sharp acidity found in modern third-wave coffee. The scent is comforting, a warm roasted embrace that cuts through the chilly Viennese air. The texture of the foam should be like silk, holding its shape even as you stir in a small amount of sugar. The vocabulary of the coffee house is its own language. There is the Kleine Brauner, a short espresso with a splash of cream, and the Verlängerter, an espresso lengthened with hot water. Each choice reflects a different mood. Ordering the right coffee is the first step to becoming part of the cafe's ecosystem. As you sit with your melange, you realize that this is not about a caffeine fix. It is a sensory anchor. The warmth of the cup in your hands, the sight of the steam rising against the backdrop of dark wood and brass, and the rhythmic sound of the cafe create a state of Gemütlichkeit, a uniquely German word that describes a feeling of warmth, friendliness, and good cheer. It is the art of being at home in the world. Just down the street from the University of Vienna sits Café Landmann, a bastion of elegance and history. Its dark wood panelling and velvet booths have hosted everyone from Marlene Dietrich to Paul McCartney. But its most famous regular was a man who changed how we understand ourselves forever: Sigmund Freud. For Freud, the coffee house was not just a place to relax, it was a laboratory for human observation. Freud would come here to read the international papers and observe the interactions of the patrons. In the late 19th century, Vienna was a city of rigid social hierarchies and repressed desires. The coffee house, however, provided a unique neutral zone, where these barriers were slightly lowered. It was the perfect environment for a man interested in the theories of the subconscious and the hidden drivers of human behavior. Imagine Freud sitting in one of these booths, nursing a black coffee and listening to the snippets of conversation drifting from the next table. He was fascinated by slips of the tongue, the hidden meanings in jokes, and the way people projected their inner worlds onto others. The coffee house was a microcosm of the Viennese mind, outwardly polite and orderly, but swirling with hidden tensions and intellectual ferment. But how did the cafe culture influence his actual work? Some historians suggest that the very structure of psychoanalysis, the long, unstructured conversation, mirrors the experience of a long afternoon in a coffee house. In both settings, time is suspended, and the focus is on the exploration of thought. The talking cure may have found its rhythm in the slow cadence of Viennese life. The air in Café Landmann today still carries that sense of intellectual weight. It is a favourite spot for politicians and academics, and the conversations you overhear are still likely to be about philosophy or policy. The light through the large windows is soft, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, a visual metaphor for the fleeting thoughts Freud sought to capture. As we sit where Freud once sat, we are reminded that Vienna was the birthplace of modern psychology because it was a city that encouraged looking inward. The coffee house provided the safety and the stimulus needed for such deep reflection. It was a place where one could be alone in a crowd, a necessary condition for the birth of the individual in the modern age. The legacy of Freud is woven into the very fabric of the city's cafe culture, reminding us that there is always more beneath the surface than meets the eye. As the 19th century drew to a close, a group of young artists in Vienna decided they had had enough of the conservative Imperial style. Led by the charismatic Gustav Klimt, they formed the Secession, a movement dedicated to each age its art, to art its freedom. They built their own exhibition hall, a striking white building topped with a massive golden dome made of 3,000 gilded laurel leaves. The locals mockingly called it the Golden Cabbage, but it soon became a temple of modernism. Klimt's work is the visual shorthand for Vienna's golden age. His paintings, particularly from his golden phase, are a dazzling mix of eroticism, symbolism, and ornate decoration. Think of The Kiss, a masterpiece where two lovers are entwined in a field of flowers, wrapped in robes of shimmering gold leaf. The texture of his work is almost three-dimensional, using real gold and silver to create a luminous, otherworldly effect. But what was Klimt trying to say with all that gold? It wasn't just about luxury. For Klimt, gold was a way to elevate his subjects to the level of icons. He was capturing the transition from the old world to the new, a world where the individual and their emotions were the centre of the universe. His art was a rebellion against the grey, industrial reality of the time. It was a celebration of beauty, desire, and the fleeting nature of life. The Secession building itself is a masterpiece of Art Nouveau design. Its clean white walls and stylized floral motifs are a stark contrast to the heavy historicist buildings of the Ringstrasse. Inside, the Beethoven freezer, A monumental mural by Klimt wraps around the walls, telling a story of the human struggle for happiness through art. The sound in the gallery is a respectful hush, allowing the visual noise of the art to take center stage. Walking through the streets of Vienna, you can still see the influence of Klimt and the Secession in the architecture, the design of the street lamps, and the vibrant art scene. It was a movement that proved that Vienna was not just a museum of the past, but a forge for the future. Klimt's gold continues to shine, reflecting the city's enduring obsession with beauty and its willingness to break the mold when necessary. The Secession reminds us that art is not just something to be looked at, it is a force that can change how we see the world. If Vienna had a national flavour, it would undoubtedly be chocolate and apricot. This is the essence of the Sachertorte, perhaps the most famous cake in the world. Its story begins in 1832, when a 16-year-old apprentice named Franz Sacher was asked to create a special dessert for Prince Metternich after the head chef fell ill. The young man produced a dense chocolate sponge, thinly coated with apricot jam and encased in a crisp chocolate glaze. It was an instant sensation. However, the fame of the cake led to one of the longest and most delicious legal battles in history. For decades, the Hotel Sacher and the royal confectioner Diemel fought over who had the right to call their cake the original Sachertorte. The dispute focused on minute details. Should there be one layer of apricot jam or two? Should the jam be in the middle or just under the glaze? Eventually, a court ruled that the Hotel Sacher held the original title, while Diemel could call theirs the Eduard Sachertorte. Visiting the Hotel Sacher today is a sensory experience of the highest order. The cafe is draped in red velvet, with crystal chandeliers and gilded frames. The scent is intoxicating, a deep, rich cocoa aroma mixed with the tartness of fruit. When your cake arrives, it is served with a mandatory side of unsweetened whipped cream, Schlagerbers. The cream is essential. It balances the richness of the chocolate and the sweetness of the jam. But what makes a Sachertorte different from a regular chocolate cake? It is the texture of the glaze. It should be firm enough to crack when you press your fork into it, but smooth enough to melt on the tongue. The sponge itself is intentionally slightly dry, designed to be eaten with that dollop of cream. It is a cake of contrasts, hard and soft, sweet and bitter, humble sponge and royal glaze. At Diemel, the experience is different but equally grand. You can watch the pastry chefs through a glass window, their hands moving with surgical precision as they dip chocolates and pipe cream. The Eduard Sachertorte here features the jam only directly under the icing, leading to a slightly different flavour profile. This rivalry is a testament to how seriously Vienna takes its sweets. Confectionery is not just food, it is a point of honour and a link to the imperial past. As you take that first bite, you aren't just tasting chocolate, you are tasting a centuries-old tradition that has been perfected by generations of master bakers. Whether you prefer the Hotel Sacher or Diemel, the Sachertorte remains the ultimate edible icon of Viennese elegance. In the centre of the city stands Stephen's Cathedral, the limestone giant that has watched over Vienna for over 700 years. Its most striking feature is its roof, covered in over 200,000 multicoloured glazed tiles that form the image of the imperial double-headed eagle. When the sun hits the roof, it glitters with a serpentine beauty that can be seen from miles away. The cathedral is the spiritual heart of the city, but it is also its acoustic anchor. It is home to the Pommerin, the second largest free-swinging bell in Europe. The current bell was cast from the metal of cannons captured from the retreating Ottoman army in 1683. It only rings on special occasions, and its deep, resonant boom is said to be the voice of Vienna. When the Pummerin rings, the entire city seems to vibrate with the sound of its own survival. Inside, the atmosphere is one of immense, shadowed grandeur. The giant's door and the heathen towers hint at the cathedral's Romanesque origins, but the interior is a triumph of high Gothic. The pillars are decorated with intricate carvings of saints and biblical scenes, their faces worn smooth by time and the touch of the faithful. The air is cool and smells of ancient stone and beeswax. But what lies beneath this sacred ground? Below the nave are the catacombs, where the bones of thousands of Viennese citizens are stacked in neat rows, along with the internal organs of many Hapsburg emperors. It is a stark reminder of the city's complex relationship with death and the afterlife. In Vienna, life and death have always lived side by side, celebrated with equal passion. The sound of the cathedral is not just the bells, it is the echo of the choir during a Sunday Mass, the shuffle of tourists on the stone floors, and the distant hum of the city filtering through the massive oak doors. It is a place where the history of the city is etched into every gargoyle and every stained glass window. As we walk around its perimeter, we see the O5 symbol carved into the stone, a secret code used by the Austrian resistance during World War II. Stephansdom is more than a church. It is a fortress of memory, a symbol of resilience that has been rebuilt and restored through fire and war, standing as a constant in an ever-changing city. No journey through Vienna is complete without the ghost of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Although born in Salzburg, Mozart spent his most productive years here, in the heart of the Hapsburg capital. It was in Vienna that he wrote The Marriage of Figaro, Don Giovanni, and The Magic Flute. The city was the ultimate stage for a composer, a place of wealth, sophisticated audiences, and imperial patronage. Walking through the narrow streets of the first district, we find the Mozart house, the only one of his many apartments that still exists today. It is a grand, elegant space where he lived at the height of his fame and fortune. You can almost hear the scratch of his quill on parchment, and the tinkling of a fortepiano coming from the drawing room. Mozart's music is synonymous with the Viennese style. Light, playful, but with a deep, underlying emotional complexity. But why did Vienna become the city of music? It wasn't just by chance. The Hapsburg emperors were passionate musicians themselves, and they poured vast resources into the arts. This created an ecosystem where composers, instrument makers, and performers could thrive. The city's architecture even played a role. The high ceilings and stone walls of the palaces and churches provided natural acoustics that shaped the development of the classical symphony. The sound of Mozart's Vienna was a mix of the courtly and the common. While his operas played in grand theatres, his melodies were whistled by street vendors and played in local taverns. He bridged the gap between high art and popular culture. The air in Vienna seems to carry his melodies even now. You'll hear them in the buskers playing violins on the street corners and in the grand concert halls. However, Mozart's relationship with the city was often volatile. He was a rebel who chafed under the restrictions of the class system, and he died in poverty, buried in an unmarked grave. This tragedy only adds to his legend. Today, he is the city's unofficial patron saint. His face is on everything from chocolate Mozartkugeln to tourist posters. But the real Mozart is found in the music, a sound that is as clear and brilliant as a Viennese winter morning. As we listen to the distant sound of a piano, we are reminded that in this city, the music never truly stops. The Vienna State Opera, the Staatsoper, is the jewel of the Ringstrasse. When it opened in 1869, the public actually hated it, comparing it to a sunken chest and driving one of its architects to suicide. But today, it is recognized as one of the world's most important opera houses. Its Renaissance-style facade, decorated with frescoes and statues of the Muses, is a beacon of culture that anchors the entire city. Inside, the experience is one of pure, unadulterated luxury. The grand staircase is a sea of white marble and gold leaf, illuminated by massive crystal chandeliers. There is a specific sound to the opera house before the performance begins. The low murmur of a sophisticated crowd, the rustle of silk gowns, and the distant chaotic tuning of the orchestra. The scent is a mix of expensive perfume, old wood, and the faint ozone-like smell of the stage lights. One of the most unique aspects of the Staatsoper is its standing room tradition. Every night, for the price of a few euros, students and music lovers can buy tickets to stand in the back of the theatre. This ensures that the opera remains a living part of the city's life, not just a playground for the wealthy. It is not uncommon to see a student in jeans standing next to a businessman in a tuxedo, both united by their passion for the music. But what happens when the seats are removed? Once a year, the opera house is transformed for the opera ball, the social event of the season. The entire floor is raised to the level of the stage, creating a massive ballroom decorated with thousands of flowers. It is the last remnant of the grand imperial balls, where the elite dance the waltz until the early hours of the morning. The acoustics of the hall are world-renowned. The space is designed so that even the faintest whisper on stage can be heard in the highest gallery. It is a temple of sound where the voices of the world's greatest singers have resonated for over a century. The texture of the seats is soft red velvet, and the air feels charged with the energy of 1,000 performances. As we stand outside the building, watching the crowds gather for the evening performance, we realize that the opera is the heartbeat of Vienna. It is where the city's history, its social structure, and its artistic soul converge. To spend a night here is to participate in a ritual that has defined the city for generations. The music may end, but the splendor of the Staatsoper remains eternal. If Mozart is the soul of Vienna, Johann Strauss II is its heartbeat. He was the waltz king, the man who took a simple peasant dance and turned it into a global phenomenon. His most famous work, The Blue Danube, is more than just a piece of music. It is the unofficial anthem of Austria. The 3/4 time signature of the waltz is the rhythm of the city itself, a swirling, elegant motion that mirrors the curve of the Ringstrasse. In the 19th century, the waltz was a social revolution. It was the first time that couples danced in a close embrace, spinning around the room in a dizzying blur. It was seen as scandalous by some, but for the Viennese it was an expression of freedom and joy. The waltz broke down social barriers as people from all walks of life gathered in the great dance halls to lose themselves in the music. In the Stadtpark, we find the famous gilded monument to Strauss. He is depicted playing his violin, surrounded by an arch of swirling marble figures. The gold on the statue is so bright it seems to glow from within, especially in the late afternoon light. It is one of the most photographed spots in the city, a testament to the enduring love the people have for their waltz king. But why does the waltz still matter today? Perhaps it is because it represents a specific kind of Viennese optimism. Even in the face of imperial decline and world wars, the music of Strauss remained a source of comfort and identity. The New Year's concert, broadcast from the Musikverein to millions around the world, always ends with the Blue Danube and the Radetzky March. It is a ritual of renewal. The sound of the waltz is the sound of celebration. It is the sound of the new year, of wedding parties, and of the countless balls that still take place every winter. The air in Vienna seems to naturally settle into that 3/4 beat. As we walk through the parks, we might hear a distant orchestra playing a Strauss melody, and for a moment, the world feels a little more graceful, a little more elegant. The waltz is not just a dance, it is a way of moving through life with poise and a smile. It is the gift that Strauss gave to Vienna, and through Vienna to the world. The Musikverein is often called the Golden Hall, and for good reason. The interior of the main concert hall is a dazzling display of gilded wood, massive crystal chandeliers and caryatids, statues of women that act as pillars. It is home to the Vienna Philharmonic, one of the world's most prestigious orchestras. But the beauty of the room is not just for show, it is a carefully calibrated instrument in its own right. The acoustics of the Musikverein are considered among the best in the world. Interestingly, the architects of the 1860s didn't have modern acoustic science to guide them. They relied on intuition and traditional building shapes. The rectangular shoebox design, the high ceilings and the wooden surfaces all work together to create a sound that is rich, warm and incredibly clear. Musicians often say that playing in this hall is like being inside a giant Stradivarius violin. The sound here is immersive. When the orchestra plays a fortissimo passage, the very air in the room seems to vibrate. When they play a pianissimo, the silence is so profound you can hear the collective breath of the audience. The golden surfaces reflect the sound just as they reflect the light, creating a sensory experience that is both visual and auditory. But what makes the Vienna Philharmonic so special? The orchestra is famous for its Viennese sound, which is characterized by a specific type of horn and a unique way of phrasing. Many of the instruments they use are unique to Vienna, handed down from teacher to student for generations. This continuity of sound and style is a point of immense pride for the city. The texture of the Musikverein is one of polished wood and heavy fabric. The seats are arranged in a way that feels intimate, despite the hall's size. The great organ, with its towering pipes, looms over the stage like a silent god of music. To hear a concert here is to experience the pinnacle of human artistic achievement. As we leave the building, the ringing in our ears is a pleasant reminder of the power of sound. The Musikverein is a temple where music is worshipped with a devotion that is almost religious. It reminds us that in Vienna, music is not just entertainment, it is a vital living force that requires the perfect environment to truly flourish. The Golden Hall is that environment, a place where gold and sound become one. While the Hofburg was the seat of power, Schönbrunn Palace was the seat of the heart. Located on the outskirts of the city, this 1400-room Baroque masterpiece served as the summer residence of the Hapsburgs. Its vibrant Schönbrunn yellow facade is unmistakable, a colour that became synonymous with the empire itself. The name Schönbrunn means beautiful spring, named after a water source discovered on the grounds. The palace was the favourite home of Empress Maria Theresa, the formidable matriarch who ruled for 40 years and had 16 children. Under her influence, the palace became a centre of courtly life and international diplomacy. Walking through the staterooms, you see a level of opulence that is hard to fathom. The great gallery with its ceiling frescoes, the hall of mirrors where a 6-year-old Mozart once played for the Empress, and the Millions room decorated with rare rosewood and Indo-Persian miniatures. The air in the palace is still, carrying the faint scent of floor wax and old textiles. The light through the tall windows is bright and airy, reflecting off the white and gold Rococo ornamentation. Unlike the heavy, serious atmosphere of the Hofburg, Schönbrunn feels light, elegant, and almost playful. It was a place for family, for music, and for the enjoyment of nature. But how did the Imperial family manage such a massive estate? The palace was supported by a small army of servants who lived in the surrounding wings. Every detail, from the temperature of the rooms to the arrangement of the flowers, was meticulously managed to ensure the comfort of the royals. The palace was a self-contained world, a bubble of luxury separated from the common people by miles of manicured gardens. The texture of the palace is one of silk wallpaper, polished parquet floors, and cold marble. Each room tells a different story of imperial taste and global connections. The Chinese cabinets reflect the 18th century obsession with the East, while the Vieux Lac room features panels from Beijing. Schönbrunn was a place where the Hapsburgs could showcase their reach and their refinement. As we step out onto the terrace, the view of the gardens stretches out before us, a vast symmetrical landscape that mirrors the order and authority of the monarchy. Schönbrunn is a monument to a time when an entire world could be ruled from a single golden palace. It remains a place of wonder, a dream of the past that continues to enchant millions of visitors every year. It is the ultimate expression of the Habsburgs' joie de vivre and their enduring legacy of beauty. To truly appreciate the scale of Schönbrunn, one must make the climb up the hill to the Gloriette. This monumental arch, designed to resemble a Roman triumphal monument, sits atop a 60-metre hill overlooking the palace and the city beyond. It was built in 1775 as a temple of fame, a tribute to the power and stability of the Hapsburg dynasty. The walk up the hill is a slow, steady ascent through the palace gardens. As you climb, the sound of the city fades away, replaced by the rustle of the trees and the chirping of birds. The air becomes cooler and fresher. Once you reach the top, the reward is one of the most spectacular views in Europe. The palace sits below you like a toy model, its yellow walls glowing in the sun, while the spires and domes of Vienna stretch out toward the horizon. The Gloriette itself is a masterclass in architectural elegance. Its central section is an enclosed glass hall, which the Emperor Franz Joseph used as a breakfast room. Imagine sitting there, sipping coffee while looking out over your entire capital. The structure is decorated with statues of eagles and trophies of war, symbolizing the empire's military strength, but the overall feeling is one of peace and serenity. But what does the Gloriette represent today? It has become a favourite spot for locals to jog, picnic, or simply sit and reflect. The breakfast room is now a cafe, where you can enjoy a mélange and a slice of cake while soaking in the view. It is a place where the grand symbolism of the past has been reclaimed for the enjoyment of the present. The texture of the stone is weathered, a pale grey that contrasts with the vibrant green of the surrounding lawns. The wind at the top of the hill is constant, a gentle reminder of the openness of the space. Standing here, you feel a sense of perspective. The city below is a hive of activity, but from this vantage point, it all seems orderly and timeless. The Gloriette is a reminder that power always seeks a high place from which to observe. But it also shows that even the most imposing monuments can become part of the everyday life of a city. As we look out over the red-tiled roofs and the distant Danube, we see a Vienna that is both imperial and modern, a city that has managed to preserve its grandeur while embracing its people. At the foot of the hill leading to the Gloriette sits the Neptune Fountain, one of the most impressive water features in any European palace garden. The fountain is a massive theatrical set carved from stone, depicting the sea god Neptune in his chariot, surrounded by tritons, sea nymphs, and horses rising from the waves. It was designed to be the focal point of the garden's main axis, a symbol of the Hapsburgs' dominion over the elements. The sound of the fountain is the dominant sensory experience. The water cascades over stone tiers into a large basin, creating a constant roaring white noise that masks the sounds of the thousands of visitors. The mist from the falling water cools the air, making it a popular spot to linger on a hot summer afternoon. The sight of the water shimmering against the pale stone and the green backdrop of the hill is hypnotic. In the 18th century, mythology was the language of power. By depicting themselves through the lens of Roman and Greek gods, the Habsburgs were making a claim to eternal authority. Neptune, the ruler of the seas, represented the empire's naval ambitions and its ability to bring order to the chaos of the world. Every muscle of the carved figures is tensed, every movement captured in stone, creating a sense of dynamic energy. But where did all this water come from? Maintaining such a fountain in the 18th century was a major engineering feat. A complex system of pipes and reservoirs was built to channel water from the surrounding hills. It was a display of technological mastery as much as artistic skill. Today, the fountain remains a marvel of engineering, its hidden pumps and valves keeping the water flowing, just as they did centuries ago. The texture of the fountain is a mix of rough-hewn rock and smooth, polished statues. Over time, the stone has developed a greenish patina from the moss and the water, giving it an organic, lived-in feel. It looks as if it has grown out of the earth itself. As we stand at the edge of the basin, the scale of the figures is overwhelming. We are reminded that for the Habsburgs, even nature had to be choreographed and turned into a spectacle. The Neptune fountain is a bridge between the wildness of the water and the rigid symmetry of the gardens. It is a place where myth and reality meet, creating a moment of pure imperial drama in the heart of the summer retreat. While Schönbrunn was the family home, the Belvedere was a monument to military genius. Built for Prince Eugene of Savoy, the brilliant general who saved Vienna from the Ottomans, the complex consists of two magnificent Baroque palaces, the upper and lower Belvedere, separated by a sprawling formal garden. It is perhaps the most harmonious Baroque ensemble in the world, a perfect marriage of architecture and landscape. The upper Belvedere, with its distinctive green copper roofs and white facade, sits at the top of a gentle slope. It was designed for entertaining and for the prince's vast art collection. Today, it is home to the Austrian Gallery, housing the world's most important collection of Viennese modernism, including Klimt's The Kiss. The transition from a general's palace to a sanctuary for art is a fitting evolution for a city that values culture as much as history. The air at the Belvedere feels more refined and quiet than at Schönbrunn. The gardens are a masterpiece of French-style symmetry, with clipped hedges, gravel paths, and tiered fountains. The sound is the crunch of gravel beneath your boots and the gentle splash of water. It is a place of order and contemplation, where every view has been carefully composed to lead the eye toward the palaces. But what makes the Belvedere so important to the Austrian soul? It was here, in the marble hall of the Upper Belvedere, that the Austrian state treaty was signed in 1955. After 10 years of occupation by the Allied powers following World War II, Austria was finally declared a free and independent nation. The image of Foreign Minister Leopold Figl stepping onto the balcony and declaring "Austria is free" is one of the most iconic moments in the country's history. The texture of the Belvedere is one of exquisite detail. The wrought iron gates are some of the finest in Europe, decorated with the prince's coat of arms and intricate floral patterns. The interior features marble floors, frescoed ceilings and elaborate stucco work. It is a place that exudes confidence and taste. As we walk from the upper to the lower Belvedere, we are following the path of history. The lower Belvedere, once the prince's private residence, now hosts temporary exhibitions. The entire complex is a reminder that in Vienna, great wealth and power were almost always channeled into the creation of beauty. The Belvedere is a testament to a man who was a master of war, but a lover of the arts, a very Viennese combination. Inside the upper Belvedere, there is one room that is always crowded, yet always strangely silent. This is the home of Gustav Klimt's The Kiss. It is perhaps the most famous image of romantic love in the history of art. Painted at the height of his golden phase, the work depicts two lovers entwined in a passionate embrace, their bodies almost entirely obscured by elaborate gilded robes. The visual impact of the painting is overwhelming. Klimt used actual gold leaf, which catches the light and gives the painting a luminous, three-dimensional quality. The gold isn't flat. It's textured with patterns, rectangles and squares for the man, circles and floral motifs for the woman. It is a symphony of geometry and organic form. The lovers seem to exist in a void of pure gold, separated from the mundane world by the power of their desire. The sound in the room is a low, reverent whisper. People from all over the world come to stand before this canvas, often moved to silence by its beauty. The air feels charged with the emotional weight of the image. It is a painting that somehow feels both ancient, like a Byzantine icon, and modern in its psychological depth. But what was Klimt trying to capture in this moment? Many believe the figures are Klimt himself and his lifelong companion, Emily Floger. The painting represents a moment of total surrender, a union where the individual self is lost in the other. It is a celebration of the erotic and the spiritual, perfectly reflecting the atmosphere of Vienna 1900, a city obsessed with the depths of the human soul. The texture of the painting, if you could touch it, would be a mix of smooth oil paint and the slightly rough metallic surface of the gold. The colours, the vibrant flowers at the lover's feet, the pale skin of the woman, the dark hair of the man are all heightened by the surrounding gold. It is a masterclass in contrast. As we move away from the painting, its image stays with us. The Kiss is more than just a masterpiece. It is a symbol of Vienna's enduring connection to beauty and the complexity of the human experience. It reminds us that art has the power to capture the most fleeting and profound moments of our lives, turning them into something eternal and golden. For a complete change of pace from the silent halls of the palaces, we head to the Naschmarkt. This is Vienna's largest and most famous open-air market, a bustling kilometre-long stretch of food stalls, restaurants and shops. It has been a centre of trade since the 16th century, and today it is the city's culinary melting pot. The sound here is a vibrant cacophony vendors calling out their wares, the sizzle of pans and the chatter of thousands of locals and tourists. The scent is an incredible shifting tapestry. One moment you are surrounded by the briny aroma of fresh seafood, the next by the spicy scent of Middle Eastern olives and hummus, and then by the sweet, yeasty smell of freshly baked Viennese bread. It is a sensory explosion that reflects the city's modern, multicultural identity. You can find anything here, from traditional Austrian cheeses to exotic fruits from around the globe. The texture of the market is one of abundance. The stalls are piled high with vibrant vegetables, glistening jars of honey and colourful piles of spices. The ground is hard-packed stone, worn smooth by centuries of trade. On Saturdays, the market expands to include a massive flea market, where you can find everything from antique Hapsburg medals to vintage vinyl records. It is a place for discovery, where the high and the low, the old and the new sit side by side. But what makes the Naschmarkt quintessentially Viennese? It is the way the market integrates with the city's architecture. As you walk, you are flanked by stunning Art Nouveau buildings, designed by Otto Wagner, their facades decorated with majolica tiles and golden medallions. Even in the middle of a busy market, the city's obsession with beauty is never far away. Stopping for a bite at one of the market's many restaurants is a mandatory ritual. Whether it's a quick falafel or a sit-down meal of Viennese schnitzel, the food is always fresh and full of life. The atmosphere is relaxed and unpretentious, a place where the rigid etiquette of the grand cafes is replaced by a more communal, lively energy. The Naschmarkt is a reminder that Vienna is a living city, not just a museum. It is a place where people meet, eat, and celebrate the richness of life. As we leave the market, our senses are full, and we have a deeper understanding of the vibrant, diverse heart that beats beneath the city's imperial skin. If you close your eyes in the first district of Vienna, the most iconic sound you will hear is the rhythmic clip-clop of horse hooves on granite paving. This is the sound of the Fiaker, the traditional horse-drawn carriages that have been part of the city's landscape since the 17th century. The name comes from the Rue de Saint-Fiacre in Paris, where the first such carriages for hire were stationed, but the Fiaker is now a purely Viennese institution. The sight of the carriages is a link to the 19th century. The horses are impeccably groomed, their coats shining, and the carriages themselves are polished to a high mirror finish. The drivers, often characters in their own right, wear traditional jackets and bowler hats. They possess a deep knowledge of the city's history, and are usually happy to share a story or a joke in their thick Viennese accent. The sensory experience of a Fiaker ride is unique. The texture of the seats is soft leather or velvet, and the carriage sways gently as it moves. There is the faint scent of the horses and the leather, a smell that hasn't changed in 300 years. As you move through the narrow streets, the world seems to slow down to the pace of a horse's walk. You see details of the buildings that you would miss from a car or a tram, the intricate carvings on a doorway, the hidden courtyards, the flower boxes on the windowsills. But are the Fiakers just a tourist trap? To the Viennese, they are much more than that. They are a beloved part of the city's identity. A Fiaker ride is a traditional part of weddings, anniversaries, and high-profile state visits. They represent a commitment to tradition and a refusal to let go of the elegance of the past. The sound of the hooves is especially evocative in the early morning or late evening, when the city is quiet. It creates a rhythmic, hypnotic backdrop to the visual beauty of the architecture. It is a reminder that Vienna was built for this pace, for the slow, deliberate movement of people and horses. As a Fiaker passes by, you might catch the driver's eye and receive a polite tip of the hat. It is a small moment of connection to a vanished world. The Fiakers are the living ghosts of the empire, continuing to trot through the streets, reminding us that some things are too beautiful to ever truly go out of style. The Prater is a place where the grandeur of the Hapsburgs meets the joy of the common people. For centuries, this vast area between the Danube and the Danube Canal was the private hunting grounds of the emperors. But in 1766, Emperor Joseph II, a man of Enlightenment ideals, opened the park to the public. It quickly became the city's primary destination for recreation, a place where the Viennese could escape the cramped streets of the centre. The most iconic landmark of the Prater is the Riesenrad, the giant Ferris wheel. Built in 1897 to celebrate the Golden Jubilee of Emperor Franz Joseph, it has become a symbol of the city's resilience. It was almost destroyed in World War II, but it was rebuilt and continues to turn to this day. A ride in one of its red wooden cabins offers a slow panoramic view of the city, especially beautiful as the sun begins to set. The Riesenrad gained global fame as a central setting in the classic noir film The Third Man. The sound of the wheel is a mechanical hum and the creak of the cables, a sound that feels both industrial and nostalgic. The air in the Prater is a mix of the fresh green scent of the Hauptallee, a 4-kilometre-long boulevard lined with chestnut trees, and the sweet aroma of candy floss and roasted nuts from the amusement park. But what makes the Prater special is its dual nature. On one hand, you have the Wurstel Prater, one of the oldest amusement parks in the world, full of bright lights, loud music, and thrill rides. On the other, you have the Green Prater, miles of meadows, woods, and waterways where you can find absolute peace and quiet. It is a place that caters to every mood. The texture of the Prater is varied. The smooth asphalt of the bike paths, the soft grass of the meadows, and the weathered wood of the old amusement rides. It is a place that has been loved by generations of Viennese. For a child, it is a place of wonder. For a couple, a place for a romantic walk. For the elderly, a place of memories. The Prater reminds us that even in a city as formal as Vienna, there is a deep need for play and for connection with nature. It is the lungs of the city, a space where everyone, regardless of their status, can find a moment of happiness. As the giant wheel turns, we see a city that knows how to enjoy itself, a city that has turned an imperial playground into a public treasure. Just on the edge of the first district lies the Donau Canal, the Danube Canal. This is not the main river, but a branch that flows right through the heart of the city. If the Ringstrasse is the city's formal suit, the canal is its leather jacket. It is a vibrant, gritty, and incredibly creative space that offers a stark contrast to the gilded halls of the palaces. The concrete walls of the canal are a constantly changing gallery of street art and graffiti. Some of the world's most famous urban artists have left their mark here. The colours are bold and the messages are often political or provocative. The sound here is a mix of the rushing water, the passing of the U-Bahn trains on the elevated tracks, and the thumping bass from the many beach bars that line the water's edge. The scent is different here too. It's the smell of river water, spray paint, and the charcoal smoke from outdoor grills. In the summer, the canal becomes the city's living room. People of all ages gather to sit on the concrete banks, dangle their feet over the water, and enjoy a drink as the sun goes down. It is a place of absolute freedom and informality. But even here, the imperial past is present. The canal is home to several structures designed by Otto Wagner, including the Schützenhaus and the Grand Locks. Wagner believed that modern infrastructure should be as beautiful as any palace, and his elegant, functional designs have stood the test of time. They are a reminder that the Viennese commitment to aesthetics extends to every corner of the city. The texture of the canal is rough and urban, the cold concrete, the rusted metal of the bridges, and the cool water. It is a place that feels alive and constantly evolving. It represents the new Vienna, a city that is young, diverse, and not afraid to break with tradition. Walking along the canal, you realize that Vienna is a city of layers. The imperial grandeur is the foundation, but the modern urban life is what keeps it breathing. The canal is where those two worlds meet. As the evening light reflects off the water and the streetlights begin to flicker on, the canal takes on a magical, cinematic quality. It is a reminder that a city's soul is found not just in its monuments, but in the spaces where its people come together to create something new. As we move into the early 20th century, a new architectural vision began to take shape, led by the visionary Otto Wagner. Wagner believed that something that is not practical cannot be beautiful. He was the father of Viennese modernism, and his work bridged the gap between the ornate decorations of the past and the clean, functional lines of the future. One of his most famous works is the Majolica house on the Wienzeile. The facade is covered in vibrant pink floral tiles, Majolica, that are not only beautiful but also easy to clean, a revolutionary idea for a city plagued by soot. The building seems to bloom among its more traditional neighbours, its golden medallions catching the light. It is a masterclass in how to combine decoration with practical urban living. But his true masterpiece is the Postsparkasse, the postal savings bank. This building is a radical departure from everything we've seen so far. The facade is covered in thin marble slabs held in place by aluminum bolts, which are left visible as a decorative element. It was a bold statement of honesty in materials. The sound inside the grand banking hall is a soft, muffled echo, filtered through a glass ceiling that floods the space with natural light. The texture of Wagner's work is smooth and industrial glass, steel and aluminum. The air in his buildings feels clean and organized. He designed everything from the door handles to the heating vents, with a meticulous attention to detail. He wanted to create a Gesamtkunstwerk, a total work of art that was also perfectly suited for the modern world. But what was Wagner's ultimate goal? He wanted to create an architecture that reflected the pace and the needs of the 20th century. He designed the city's metropolitan railway, the Stadtbahn, creating elegant stations that are still in use today. His work transformed Vienna from a city of the past into a city of the future. Walking past an Otto Wagner building, you see a Vienna that is confident, rational, and incredibly stylish. He proved that beauty didn't have to be a copy of the past. It could be something entirely new, born of the machine age. His legacy is everywhere in the city, a reminder that even the most functional structures can be elevated to the level of high art. Wagner's Vienna is a city of light, air, and enduring modern elegance. As the sun begins to dip below the horizon, Vienna enters its most magical phase, the blue hour. The sky turns a deep, velvety indigo, and the city's grand monuments begin to glow with a soft, warm light. The transition is subtle but profound. The frantic pace of the day slows down and the city takes on a more sophisticated, intimate atmosphere. The illumination of the Ringstrasse is a masterclass in urban lighting. The buildings are not harshly lit. Instead, their architectural details are highlighted by subtle spotlights that create a play of light and shadow. The Parliament, the Rathaus, and the Opera House look even more theatrical in the evening, like stage sets for a grand Imperial drama. The sound of the city changes too. The traffic becomes a distant hum, and the chime of the trams feels more resonant in the cooler air. The scent of the evening is a mix of damp stone and the inviting aromas drifting from the restaurants and wine taverns. It is the time for the aperitif, as people gather in the small bars and cafes to transition from work to play. There is a sense of anticipation in the air, a feeling that the night is full of possibilities. But what is it about the Viennese evening that feels so timeless? Perhaps it is the way the light reflects off the wet cobblestones after a brief rain, or the way the yellow trams glide like ghosts through the dark. The city feels like it could be in any century. The modern cars and the neon signs seem to fade into the background, leaving only the eternal stone and the soft glow of the lanterns. Taking a ride on the ring tram as the lights come on is one of the best ways to experience this transition. You see the city unfolding in a continuous loop of beauty. The texture of the evening is one of soft light and deepening shadows. It is a time for reflection, for quiet conversation, and for simply soaking in the atmosphere. As we walk through the darkening streets, we feel a deeper connection to the city. The blue hour is a reminder that beauty is not just about what you see, but how you feel. Vienna in the evening is a city that invites you to slow down, to look up, and to appreciate the quiet majesty of the world. The day is ending, but the story of the city continues, illuminated by the soft glow of the past. Tucked away in a small square just off the busy Graben is Peter's Kitch, St. Peter's Church. From the outside, it is a handsome but modest Baroque church. But when you step inside, the world literally explodes into gold and colour. It is one of the most beautiful and intimate Baroque interiors in Europe, a space that feels like a jewel box designed for the divine. The dome is the centerpiece, decorated with a stunning fresco representing the coronation of the Virgin. The light filters down from the high windows, illuminating the intricate stucco work and the massive gilded altar. The air is thick with the scent of old wood and the faint, lingering aroma of incense. Unlike the vastness of Stephansdom, St. Peter's feels close and personal, wrapping you in its golden embrace. The sound of the church is its most famous feature. Almost every day at 3 o'clock, there is a free organ concert. The sound of the pipes filling the small space is overwhelming. A wall of music that seems to resonate in your very bones. The acoustics are perfect, designed to elevate the human voice, and the organs roar to a heavenly level. Sitting in the dark wooden pews, you can lose yourself in the music and the art. But what does this level of decoration say about the Baroque mindset? For the people of the 17th and 18th centuries, the church was a glimpse of heaven on earth. The opulence was meant to inspire awe and to remind the faithful of the glory of God. In Vienna, the Baroque was more than just a style. It was a way of life, a celebration of the spectacular and the divine. The texture of the church is one of smooth marble, polished wood, and cold gold leaf. Every surface is covered in detail, angles peeking from corners, floral motifs winding around pillars, and dramatic statues of saints in frozen motion. It is a place where there is no such thing as too much. As we step back out into the modern bustle of the Graben, the memory of the golden interior stays with us. St. Peter's is a reminder that in Vienna, the most incredible treasures are often hidden in plain sight. It is a sanctuary of beauty and sound, a place where the imperial and the spiritual become one. As the doors close behind us, the world feels a little less bright, but our souls feel a little more full. To find the true, unvarnished heart of Vienna, you have to leave the grand boulevards and head to the hills. On the outskirts of the city, in districts like Grinzing and Neustift, you will find the vineyards that make Vienna the only world capital with a significant wine industry. Here, the tradition of the Heuriger, the wine tavern, reigns supreme. The name Heuriger refers to both the tavern itself and this year's wine. By imperial decree, wine growers are allowed to serve their own young wine and simple food to the public. You know, a Heuriger is open when a bundle of pine branches, The Ausgesteckt is hung above the door. It is a signal for friends and neighbours to gather for a long evening of drinking, eating and storytelling. The atmosphere of a Hörige is the definition of Gemütlichkeit. The tables are long, communal wooden benches where strangers sit side by side. The sound is a mix of laughter, the clinking of glasses, and often the soulful strains of Schrammelmusik, traditional Viennese folk music played on violins, an accordion, and a double-necked guitar. The scent is of grilled meat, fresh rye bread, and the crisp, fruity aroma of the white wine. But what makes this wine special? The most famous Viennese wine is Wiener gemischter Satz, a blend where different grape varieties are grown, harvested, and pressed together. It is a wine that reflects the terroir of the Viennese hills, a crisp and lively drink that is perfect for a summer evening. The texture of the tavern is rustic, rough wood, stone floors, and the cool shade of grapevine trellises. In the Hörige, the class distinctions of the city centre disappear. You might find a High Court judge sitting next to a construction worker, both enjoying a glass of wine and a plate of Liptauer cheese spread. It is a democratic, earthy tradition that has survived for centuries. It reminds us that for all its imperial grandeur, Vienna is still a city that values the simple pleasures of the earth. As we sit in a vineyard overlooking the city, watching the lights of Vienna twinkle in the distance, we realize that the Hörige is the perfect balance to the coffee house. One is for the mind, the other for the soul. Both are essential to the Viennese way of life. The wine is young, the company is warm, and the city below feels like a world away. This is the secret Vienna, the one that the locals keep for themselves. Our journey through Vienna ends where many Viennese days begin and end, in the Stadtpark. This was the city's first public park, opened in 1862 as part of the Ringstrasse project. It is a lush green sanctuary that feels a world away from the stone and gold of the palaces. As we walk along the banks of the Wien River, which flows through the park, we see a city that has mastered the art of living well. The park is dotted with monuments to the city's artistic greats, but the most famous is the golden statue of Johann Strauss. In the evening light, it seems to radiate a warmth that draws people toward it. The sound here is the gentle rush of the river, the laughter of children playing, and the distant music from the Kursalon, a grand building where Strauss himself once performed. The air is fresh and smells of mown grass, and the flowers that are meticulously planted in seasonal patterns. Vienna is consistently ranked as the city with the highest quality of life in the world. As we look around the Stadtpark, it's easy to see why. There is a sense of balance here, a respect for the past, a commitment to the arts, and a focus on the well-being of the people. The transition from an imperial capital to a modern hub of livability has been a success, because the city never lost its soul. It simply opened its doors to everyone. But what is the ultimate takeaway from our walk through this imperial landscape? It is the realization that elegance is not just about wealth or status, it's about a way of seeing the world. It's about taking the time to enjoy a cup of coffee, to listen to a waltz, and to appreciate the curve of a stone arch. It's about the sensory details that anchor us in the moment and connect us to history. The texture of the Stadtpark is soft and inviting, the velvet grass, the smooth benches, and the cool shade of the ancient trees. It is a place for reflection. We think back on the sunrise at the Hofburg, the scent of the Sachertorte, the sound of the Fiaker hooves, and the golden glow of Klimt's paintings. These are the threads that weave together the tapestry of Vienna. As the night finally settles over the city, we feel a sense of peace. Vienna is a city that has survived empires and wars, yet it remains as elegant and as evocative as ever. It is a place that invites you to daydream, to explore and to connect. Our walk is over, but the city's story continues. A timeless rhythm that will keep calling us back to its streets, its cafes, and its golden light. Thank you for joining me on this slow walk through the imperial elegance of Vienna. I hope you felt the weight of the history, smelled the roasted coffee, and heard the distant echo of a waltz. This city has a way of staying with you, long after you've left its streets. If you enjoyed this journey, please subscribe to Daydreaming Travel Stories for more immersive walks through the world's most beautiful places. And before you go, tell me in the comments, which part of Vienna is your dream destination, whether it's a quiet corner of a coffee house or the grand halls of Schönbrunn. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, keep dreaming.